cops of Reddit, what is the most suspicious thing you've ever caught somebody doing for a totally illegitimate reason? At around 2 AM on a weeknight, I see a guy bolt from a house in a quiet residential burglary hotspot. His face is covered, he's wearing sunglasses or something similar and the kind of dark clothing you catch burglars in. As I follow him and start to shout up on the radio, the cars parked between us clear to reveal he is running behind the tiniest dog I've ever seen. A clearly uncontrollable pooch that is having the time of its life. I just kept going. Actual cop here. Edit. Damn. You all just put me over 200,000 user karma with this after 7 Reddit years. I work midnights and one night I'm sitting in my cruiser at like 2 AM doing paperwork. I see an older model car driving slowly around the area and then pull into an abandoned parking lot and black out in the corner by the woods. No lighting. This is for a building that is being torn down. This is not normal. So I'll look into it. I pull up to him and get out. "How are you doing?" I asked. "What's going on in this parking lot tonight?" He's got bags full of something in his back seat, and he's alone. He's an older guy and he seems a little off. He tells me I'm here to feed the cats. I think to myself that this is a bullshit answer and attempt to call his bluff. Okay. Where are they? Then like 40 cats come running out of the woods. The guy asks may I say sure? He gets out of the car and starts feeding the cats. The closest thing I can describe it as was the scene in Ace Ventura where his pets all come out of hiding. Okay. Go on about your business, I guess. And I left. Not a cop, but I wanted to make my father's headstone area look a little better. I thought planting a lavender on either side of the headstone. Lavender looked nice and do pretty well when neglected. In case you didn't know it, you draw a lot of attention at a cemetery when you start digging near a grave with a full-sized shovel. My grandfather was the only police officer in a one-stoplight town in Ohio in the 1960s. His favorite story to tell was the time he got a call for suspicious behavior at the local ice cream parlor after hours. He pulled up to see a young boy on the ground who looked like he was bleeding badly. And he was weirded out by the overwhelming smell of cherries. And he saw another police officer inside. Turns out the children of the owners were making a home movie of themselves playing cops and robbers. The blood was cherry syrup for the ice cream. And the other officer was the brother, saving the owner of the ice cream shop from robbers. That was their sister. The kids made him a sundae for his troubles and promised to call if they were going to film a sequel. Not a cop, but do work in law enforcement. This is part of a more elaborate story. At one point while in jail, suspect 1 told a suspected hitman that if he took a deal he wouldn't get paid. Everyone freaked out, as this was clear confirmation number 1 had hired number 2 for a killing as suspected. After much investigation they were both innocent, just a series of really dumb things and belligerents toward officers preventing explanations. Turns out the comment was because genius number 1 had the idea to sue everyone for his arrest, and was trying to say that if number 2 took a plea deal he wouldn't be able to get in on the lawsuit. Was a cop in cops and robbers game. Caught one of my friends eating what appeared to be my snacks, but he just happened to have the same type. Finally, a response from an actual cop. Back when Pokemon Go first came out I used to go out after 8 PM when I was done with work and stay out playing until like 5 to 6 AM. One night at like 4 AM I was standing in an alley next to a gym that I was fighting and a cop pulls up next to me and asks what I'm doing. I told him I was fighting a gym and showed him on my phone. He just sort of chuckled and told me to have a nice night and drove off. Cop here, well technically military really. I'm an officer with the Portuguese National Republican Guard. Similar to the French gendarmes, we're generally responsible for policing rural low population areas, though we do also take on some military expeditionary roles, like our peacekeeping presence in Timor. The point is, if you live in rural Portugal, we're the ones who are going to come when you need help, or have trouble. About 2 years ago there was a murder. Old man was stabbed and bled out in his kitchen. The wife came home to find him dead lying in the counter. She called 112, 911 equivalent, and I was dispatched along with some colleagues. Paramedics confirmed the death on site, but we didn't want to move the body before the judiciary police could have a look and do forensics. Not only that, but the old lady wasn't doing so good with the shock. So after about 20 minutes of her hyperventilating, we got her in the ambulance and paramedics took her to the hospital. That means me and my colleague were left guarding the body and trying to keep things as we found them, while still looking around for evidence. About an hour later we hear a truck arrive. My colleague goes up from the basement where we were, but I stay longer to have a better look around. Come back up 10 minutes later to find the body gone. I look outside and see two guys shoving it into the back of a nondescriptive refrigerated truck. I come out running and yelling with my gun out, thinking the murderer was back and trying to cover their tracks. My colleague steps out from behind the truck. Turns out the morgue's vehicle was broken, and they were using a rental to transport the bodies. The two guys I saw were morgue workers just putting the body in the truck to carry it to the morgue, while my colleague was talking with a third. The judiciary police only came about 2 hours later. Prior us Coast Guard. We were doing a security boarding on a vessel planning on entering port with some hazardous cargo. Me and one other guy are in the engine room, making sure everything is kosher, when we catch a glimpse of some boots barely sticking out from under a piece of machinery. Since, as far as we knew, all crew were present and accounted for above deck, we were understandably concerned. We radio up asking about it, get told all present and accounted for up above. So we're thinking stowaway or someone being smuggled. Luckily it was neither, just a dude who legit fell asleep while doing some maintenance. He shared a name with one of the other crew, so that's how we missed his absence. Apparently they, our guy up above, checked the same guy twice. Go fig. Obligatory not a cop, but I have one. However, I have to give a little backstory. I posted this on another AskReddit thread. I was on the bus commuting to my university and began to feel extremely bloated. So I decided to get off. Turns out it was a relatively good move, because as soon as I got off the bus I began furiously shitting myself. And I mean like full on ass blasting diarrhea. Of course it didn't really help me avoid shitting myself, but it helped me not embarrass myself by turning the bus into an ass bomb that day. I didn't give the full story, as what happened thereafter was probably even more embarrassing than myself. Anyway, after the story above happened, I found myself in the middle of the downtown area of my city, a place where I was not familiar with. However, luckily I had my phone, so I turned on my location and tried to figure out where I was. Thankfully, I found out that I was really close to the Natural History Museum that I visited quite frequently. So I get there, and decide to stand on the side of the building where there is this small round area with stone benches. I call my parents, and after having a few laughs they agree to pick me up. However, I'm like 45 minutes away from my house, so it's gonna take a while. What I didn't expect is that people were frequently walking past me. Apparently they found me suspicious. They apparently couldn't smell the radiating stench of filling the area, and decided to inform the cops that I was there, who said people thought I was waiting for a drug deal. This forced me to admit that I did indeed shit my pants, and after they came closer I think they realized it, and didn't want to go towards the front of the museum where there were a lot of people. Needless to say, I was embarrassed. The cop politely asked if I needed a ride home or a phone to call someone on, and I assured them that someone was coming to get, and they left. And there you have it, the most embarrassing moment of my life. I was on the other side of it. I was driving around my neighborhood at around 11 PM really slow looking for my lost doggo. I had work the next day so I went home and went to bed. About 30 minutes later 5 cop cars pull up at the house and ask to speak to me. So naturally I'm pissed and ask why they are there. She said we had multiple calls about your car driving slowly through the neighborhood blah blah blah. Let me tell you, so is that illegal? Was not the right thing to say. The cop gets super mad and going on and on about how suspicious it was. Finally I told her I was looking for my dog and she said oh and turns around and walks away. It was silly, am I really going to scope out houses down the street from where I live? The dog came back next morning happy and full of trash. She was a lab who eat everything. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribe if you want more AskReddit.